Just take a look at that picture. That smoke behind the Executive Office Building, which is right next to the White House, we now believe is from a fire in the courtyard of the Pentagon, or at least where an aircraft appears to have crashed in the general vicinity of the Pentagon. And now the Pentagon is southwest of the White House, across the Potomac River, and what we think we may be seeing there, emphasis on think, is smoke in the distance rather than immediately behind the Pentagon. Precautions being taken everywhere. The U.S. Capitol is now being evacuated as a precautionary measure. The U.S. Treasury, according to at least one eyewitness, is being evacuated as a precautionary measure. And there was an explosion outside the Pentagon. And that's an issue of eyewitnesses from both inside and from outside, but we're not quite sure what we're looking at.
I want to let you know we're going to get back to ABC's special coverage, but we ourselves, what started in New York is now happening in Washington. We want to get more into that this morning.
That's right. I'm Carol Costello. Don Hudson. We want to go live to Sam Ford right now. He is live at Reagan National Airport with an update on the air crash at the Pentagon. Sam Ford, tell us what you can.
Well, Carol, as you can see, there's this huge cloud of smoke behind me, and that is the location of the Pentagon. We had come here to National Airport to, continue our coverage of the situation in New York because the airports had been shut down. No sooner had we gotten here and stopped the car than we looked up, and there was this cloud of smoke billowing from the Pentagon. There had been a traffic accident here at National, and a number of emergency vehicles were dealing with that. Then suddenly we saw this, and I would say within a couple of minutes they were all tearing out of here, heading toward the Pentagon. We asked folks here. One of the police officers told me that he had heard a plane had gone into the Pentagon. Obviously, more of the situations in New York. People here are extremely nervous, and some are saying that they wanted us to leave this area. We don't know if they're going to shut down the airport or evacuate this place. If this is a concern, at this point, people are still here, but there is concern about the safety of this place. Obviously, with these bombs going off or planes crashing into buildings all over the place.
And we are looking now at Air Force One. We've just been told by ABC's Ann Compton that there's been a serious investigation now, or serious check of Air Force One before the president, who's been in Florida, gets on it and flies back to Washington. All of this, of course, adds to the tension, adds to the fear, but all of it makes absolute common sense. And there is no aircraft in the world, to the best of my knowledge, which is given as intense security as Air Force One, which is what any aircraft the president flies on is designated, of course, wherever it is in the world. And today it's been at Sarasota in Florida. I want to get somebody to fix some monitors here for me, please. I want this monitor in front of me here to look like that monitor, so I know what I'm looking at. Right.
Welcome back to our coverage of the bombing, certainly right here, the terrorism attacks with two planes heading into the World Trade Center.
Sam, a question for you. We understand that there is a tail section of a plane sticking out of the Pentagon, and a plane did hit the Pentagon. Is that true?
Well, at this point, Carol, we are at National Airport, so all we can really see is the flame. Now, I understand we have some photographers over at the Pentagon. I cannot tell you exactly, but from our vantage point, we see smoke.
Sam, if I can interrupt, we do have an eyewitness who actually saw this event take place. They're on the phone with us now. Is it Mr. or Ms. Gurman?
Mr. Gurman.
Okay, Mr. Gurman, tell us what happened.
I saw a big explosion, a ball of fire. My window rattled, and I looked at it. It was a big ball of fire and the smoke coming out. But I'm looking at it right now. It's missed the Navy Annex and missed the Pentagon. It's like missed so many high-rise buildings. It hit probably a parking lot, or there's a cemetery behind the Navy Annex.
Mr. Gurman, did you actually see a plane?
I didn't see a plane. I heard the explosion. I thought it was a flyby because I live next to the airport. My window rattled. I looked out. I saw a ball of fire and just smoke coming out.
We just have a little bit more information, Lisa. Apparently that plane out of Boston that left Logan Airport had sent out a radio transmission, a probably coded radio transmission to air traffic controllers that it had been hijacked. That's why the FBI was investigating it, and eventually that was the plane that crashed, the first crash into World Trade Center 1.
Chris Plant, tell me what you've learned since we last talked.
Well, in speaking to people here at the Pentagon as they're being evacuated from the building, I am told by several people that there was, in fact, an explosion. I was told by one witness, an Air Force senior enlisted man, that he was outside when it occurred. He said that he saw a helicopter circle the building. He said that it appeared to be a U.S. military helicopter, and that it disappeared behind the building where the helicopter landing zone is. Excuse me. And that he then saw a fireball go into the sky. I'm attempting to make my way around to that side of the building in my car right now to see if I can get a better visual perspective on the scene on that side of the building. But I can tell you that security has certainly clamped down. The U.S. Park Police, another federal law enforcement department, has arrived in force on the scene. There's a Park Police helicopter overhead. Every car that arrives at the gate where I was located was being stopped by officers at gunpoint. Everyone is being forced out of their vehicles as they arrive at the Pentagon. It's a very tense situation, obviously, but initial reports from witnesses indicate that there was, in fact, a helicopter circling the building, contrary to what the AP reported, according to the witnesses I've spoken to anyway, and that this helicopter disappeared behind the building and that there was then an explosion. That's about all I have from here.
Okay.
Don, hold on with us for a second. We're just getting this bulletin. The Federal Aviation Administration has shut down all aircraft takeoffs nationwide. All aircraft takeoffs nationwide have been halted by the FAA.
We have Don on the phone now, who was another witness to what happened at the Pentagon. Don, can you hear us? Don?
Hello?
Yes, Don. This is Andrea in the newsroom with Mike Buchanan. What did you see?
I saw it was an American Airlines 757, and it came in and hit the heliport, came down Columbia Pike and hit the heliport next to the Pentagon. I live in an apartment building on that side of the Pentagon, and it just crashed right into it. I don't know if it damaged the side of the Pentagon, but the Pentagon doesn't look that badly damaged, but I know it hit at least the heliport on the side of the Pentagon.
You said it was a 757. How could you tell? How could you see that?
Yes, I could see it. And my roommate is an airplane person, and he saw it too. I mean, we saw the whole thing.
Okay.
We now understand that the Federal Aviation Administration is shutting down all airline takeoffs nationwide. All airliners nationwide there will be no more takeoffs, and I imagine that the planes that are in the air right now are going to be diverted to the closest airport as soon as possible, because in a situation like this, the authorities don't know where the next one might come from, the next rogue aircraft. We have seen the World Trade Center, both towers, hit by jetliners. We've seen the Pentagon apparently hit by a jetliner. Authorities want to take every precaution they can, and so all aircraft takeoffs nationwide have been stopped.
You've got to think that is an indication one would suspect that this was a hijacking, or at least one of them was a hijacking, because that would indicate that they don't know if there is another plane where it'd be coming from, and one way to prevent a repeat, whether it would be a fourth attack, if that's indeed what happened out at the Pentagon.
Now, as far as the first blast is concerned, I did hear some kind of a scream. Just a split second before that tremendous blast. And I did not know it was an aircraft. I did not know what it was. But you were able to confirm what happened with the second explosion in the second tower.
Ali, let me just interrupt you for a second, if I may. We are told now that the White House has been threatened with a terrorist attack. Maybe some sort of a verbal threat, I don't know, but one would assume that the White House, given the fact that the Pentagon was under attack and the World Trade Center was under attack, this country is under attack by terrorists, both here in New York and in Washington.
The west wing of the White House, I've just told, was just been evacuated just now. So that brings us up to date. And Jim Dolan, you started to talk about what...
This also, after a plane going into the Pentagon,
right.
That report that we're getting. So the nation's capital is also being rocked by this at this moment. Jim, before we went to the network, you were continuing a thought.
We just wanted to report that Abu Dhabi Television is reporting today, this morning, that a group called the Palestinian DXLP is taking credit, is taking responsibility for these two attacks on the World Trade Center.
And just moments ago, the President of the United States went in before the nation to make this announcement.
It just...
I understand we're going to rerun the bite of the President. Okay, here it is.
Today we've had a national tragedy.
We are also being told that the FAA has suspended takeoffs and landings, and I want to make sure I get this right, guys, that at all airports around the country. Air travel in this country has come to a halt this morning, as clearly people in government, police forces, fire departments are trying to figure out what exactly is going on. There are several now incidents that look, for all that we can tell, to be a major terrorist attack here in the United States.
Mr. Germa, do you want to add anything? I can hear you're still on the phone with us.
I'm trying to get out of here because I live a few miles from the Pentagon.
Okay, you get going, Mr. Germa. We understand. Thank you for joining us. Let's go to a White House shot that we have right now. The White House West Wing has been evacuated, as we understand. We know that President Bush is not there, but he is on his way back to Washington. You can see the armed guards on top of the White House keeping watch. But at this point, they, as well as we, don't know exactly what's going to happen, but everyone is on standby, as you might expect.
Matt, it obviously took a lot of coordination. There's a lot of groups in the world that have the ability to coordinate these types of attacks. As you know, and most people should know, the United States is an open society. I mean, we've talked for years about the downside of having our borders basically open. And any given day, people fly into our airports undocumented and turned into the population. They're not certainly all terrorism. They're not terrorists, but I mean, we live in a free society, and I'm not espousing we change that. But it's very, very difficult for the FBI and law enforcement to keep track of this when we live in the society that we live in.
Let's go to Michael Slattery live on the scene. Michael, take it away. John Slattery, I'm sorry. John? John Slattery. Are you ready? Okay, we were told John was ready. We're going to continue on with our coverage.
Katie, my colleague Chris Brown here at the Pentagon encountered some of those who survived, whatever it was, whether it was a bomb or an airplane crashing into the Pentagon. One of the survivors who was reportedly injured, had various lacerations, was on the second floor of the D ring. That is one ring inside the outer ring of the Pentagon, when suddenly there was this horrific blast, and he said that the second floor buckled upward, and then the third floor above him actually collapsed downward. The scene on the other side of the building, as it's being described to us, there are people being removed on stretchers. Security forces are evacuating the building right now, and according to the officials here at the Pentagon, they still don't know exactly what it was, but as you reported, Katie, eyewitnesses reported that in fact it was a plane that crashed into the Pentagon.
You are on the streets right now of Washington. What is the mood like there?
Well, maybe my cameraman can pan over. We're starting to hear a lot of sirens. We're starting to see people down the street from us standing outside an office building. We're not sure why. We're not sure if that building has been evacuated, but the level of energy is certainly starting to pick up here as we're hearing reports again of these buildings being evacuated in the downtown area.
All right.
As you said, the first explosion, the first plane slamming into the first building, a plane that was hijacked from Boston.
We wish you could tell you more about what's going on in our own backyard at the Pentagon. We don't know if there were any injuries. We do know there was a construction scene on the scene at the time. We do know when they heard something explode, they turned around and they started to run. We do not know if anyone inside the Pentagon or around it was hurt.